Right. Welcome to this discussion. Right. So, for our editorial analysis of January 2025, right. So, we've been doing this over the last few months, right. So, in this discussion, for the month of January, the important editorials from the UPSC perspective that we will discuss in this session, right. What I've done is we will divide it into two sessions, right. So one half we can do it today, the remaining half we can do it tomorrow, same time at 11 a.m. And another important thing, as usual, the PDF that is there of the notes as well as the editorial that will be shared with you in the description of the video. You can download it, you can go through it, you can make use of the PDF, and if you have any queries or doubts or clarifications regarding these topics, you can always put them in the comments. And another one important thing, if you have any answer writing guidance that you need, so maybe you have written some sample answers for the questions that we have provided in the PDF, you can very well put your answers also in the comments, and our people will get back to you. We'll just give you some feedback. Okay. So let us go into the discussion. The first one, it is with respect to the banking system, right. So the latest financial stability report of RBI, it has said that the bad loans in India has fallen, right. So which is a good thing. So you know that the financial stability report of RBI is given twice a year. So it is a biannual report, right. Remember, biannual means 2 times in a year. Biennial means once in 2 years. So be careful with these terms, right. It's a biannual report, and it has shown that the NPA situation, whether it is the gross NPA or the net NPA, that has improved, and the stress tests also that have been conducted by RBI, that also has improved the macroeconomic environment, right. And only few banks have fallen short of the minimum capital requirement, in that too in only one adverse scenario. So usually the stress test and all, they will carry it out in a favorable, in a neutral, as well as in a adverse scenario. So that we will get a fair idea, because banking, the external environment has also an impact in the outlook of banking. So considering for adverse scenario, only few banks failed the minimum capital requirement percentage. So it's a positive sign, right. So you are aware what is NPA and all. If a particular customer does not repay the principal or interest, right, or both for more than 90 days, then that particular loan becomes categorized as an NPA. And once it becomes an NPA, bank has to keep a particular percentage from the profit as provisions. So more the NPA, more difficult it is for the bank to give fresh loans, and it reduces the profitability of the bank, right. So further and further increase in NPA, it will affect the banking system. The bank itself can be put under the prompt correct framework, right. This you might have heard of it, right. The prompt corrective action framework, PCA framework, right, of RBI. So another important point that is there in this financial stability report, it is with respect to the microfinance sector. So microfinance, it is giving the small quantum of loans to the people who are from the unbanked and underbanked population, right. For example, you might have heard of PM Swanidhi, right, wherein we give loans, say 10,000 or 30,000 to the street vendors at subsidized interest rates. These will be collateral free loans, right. And also microfinance involves the self-help groups, all these people, so giving loans to self-help groups, right. All this come under microfinance. So in the microfinance sector, there is a sign of stress, okay, and a lot of people, especially in the unbanked and underbanked population, so they take small loans from different lenders, right. So you can see here, 11% was overdue, while 60% had availed more than 3 loans. So that is the thing. So it shows that there is a small stress in the microfinance sector, and gold loan NPAs has also surged by 30%, right? So these are all some of the things that we have to keep in mind, right? So some of the important things that we have to know regarding the banking sector. So the data is important. It will help you support your answer in mains. So bad loans are at an all-time low, at least 12-year low. So the thing is that improved asset quality, higher profitability, strong capital positions, these are all some of the things that are positive with respect to the banking sector. And the stress test also, the results are positive, right? Some of the important concerns are with respect to the unsecured loans given to microfinance, right, in the form of microfinance to the weaker section. So that is some issue. And some of the borrowers, they are having multiple loans, right? So these are all some of the things. With respect to corporate borrowers, the loan interest rates has dropped, right? So these are some of the issues with respect to the current banking scenario as given in the financial stability report of RBI. And basic terminology regarding NPAs, right? So anything that is remaining unpaid for more than 90 days, that is called as an NPA. If it remains an NPA for up to 12 months, it's called as substandard asset. If it remains substandard for again up to it's greater than 12 months but less than 3 years usually, that is what they take, then it gets categorized as doubtful asset. And then if in the RBI's audit or in the bank's own internal audit, if the doubtful asset is classified as it's not possible for it to be recovered, then it can be categorized as a loss asset, in which they'll remove it from the balance sheet. But of course that doesn't mean that we will still not try to recover the loan. We will still do the effort, just that it will not be categorized as an asset, right? So loan write-offs, these are removed from the books, but they are still due, right? That assets, right, loans are the asset for the bank. So when you write off an asset, it has a big impact in the balance sheet, right? So some of the reasons for write-offs, right? The reasons for write-off is that it's very difficult for us to we've tried all our best, still they're not repaying. So in that case, instead of having it in the balance sheet, categorizing it as an asset, it will mask the actual condition of the balance sheet. So to clean up the balance sheet, we go for write-offs. So impact of bad loans and write-offs, it reduces the capital adequacy, it reduces the lending capacity, right? It makes the bank wary of giving new lending. All these are some of the problems, right? And if you take a loan and it becomes NPA, you don't pay it promptly, it can affect your credit score. You might have heard CIBIL score, CIBIL rating and all. So it will tank, it will cause problems elsewhere, right? So these are all some of the things. And what are the measures to protect the banks from NPA? So you would have heard banks take collateral. SARFAESI Act is there to enforce the collateral. If it is with respect to a company, then we employ the turnaround professionals and all. Asset reconstruction companies are involved. The bank can sell the bad loans to the ARCs. So you might have heard of them. NARCL is there. Then the India Debt Resolution Company Limited is there. These two together make the ARCs in India, Asset Reconstruction Company in India. And with respect to companies, if a company is shutting down, we take it to the insolvency bankruptcy board, hoping for a turnaround. So these are some of the things in which banks can protect themselves, the lenders can protect themselves in if a particular company is going to fail, right? So next article, it is regarding delimitation. So delimitation, you are aware, right? There's nothing but change in the boundaries of the constituencies, so as to ensure that for example, if one MP is representing 5 lakh people, this should be the same across India. So imagine if we are having 545 Lok Sabha constituencies and one MP is equivalent to 5 lakh, in that constituency the voter the count is 5 lakh. It should be the same across India. So that will ensure that there will be the same representative for each population. So that is only delimitation. So periodically you have to do the delimitation, especially at least once every 10 years after the census, That is what the constitution demands, right? So the latest census, it is yet to start, right? So now only they are doing some preliminary work and all. So once the census is over, only then the fresh delimitation can be done. And this article says that the chief ministers of say Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, they are a little bit worried, as they have ensured successfully the demographic control. That is, they have brought down the fertility rate, they have brought down the birth rate, and as a result the population in these states has come down. So as a result, in the fresh delimitation, there's a chance that, say for example, Tamil Nadu currently has 39 constituencies in the Lok Sabha. It can come down to 25 or 28, so that is their worry, right? So same thing, Andhra Pradesh chief minister also has expressed it. And in some of the meetings, the chief ministers are proposing that we will encourage our population to produce more children. So these are some of the things that is mentioned in the article, right? And another important thing mentioned in the article is China's one child policy, how it helped China. Now China is having demographic bottleneck, where a lot of people are remaining single, and even on the married population, the cost of taking care of the parents, right? So there's only one child, so mother and father, so the number of dependents is increasing, right? So 4 dependents on 2 people, plus if you are going to have children, then it makes like 5 or 6 people, and the cost of living has increased. It becomes very difficult for them to support that many dependents, right? And that too now in a scenario where reducing social security, lack of pensions and all. So that is once again ensuring that the family sizes remain small. But only problem is that certain states in the country, they still have fertility rate above the replacement level. So as a result, they'll benefit from the delimitation in the sense that they'll be having more constituencies. Say for example, Uttar Pradesh has 80 MPs. Maybe in the fresh delimitation, it can go above 110, 120 also. So these are some of the things that are there. So this might create a discontent among the other states. So there's an impact on federalism here. So these are some of the things that are discussed in the article, right? So what is delimitation? You need to know, right? The constitution says that delimitation, it should be done after every census. However, only 4 times delimitation has been done, right? The oldest one, it was based on the 2001 census. It was done in 2008. But of course, the 2001 census, they just ensured, what they did was they just shifted the boundaries of the constituencies. They fixed the number of seats based on the 1971 census itself, right? So in 2026, the number of seats will be based on the population of the 2021 census, right? So that is the expectation, right? If 2021 census is getting delayed, then we have to go for an older census like 2011 or something like that. So remains to be seen what's going to happen. And after the fresh delimitation is over, only then even the women's representation bill, right, 1/3 of seats in the Lok Sabha state legislative assembly, that reservation, that also will be applied, right? So constitutional backing, so delimitation has constitutional backing, right? So article 82, article 170 for state legislative assembly delimitation. Delimitation act is there, 2002, right? 84th and 87th amendment of the constitution, it froze the delimitation based on the 1971 census. So the population of the 1971 census, based on that 545 seats we have taken, we have frozen that. So now the fresh delimitation will be done after the census, latest census. Okay, so advantages of population based delimitation, that's what we discussed this, right? It will ensure that if one MP in a constituency is representing 5 lakh people, the same thing should be there elsewhere also, right? So that is the thing, one person, one vote, that balance will be maintained, right? So it strengthens democracy, it ensures political responsiveness, and this is what is done elsewhere in other democracies across the globe also. So these are some of the things regarding population based delimitation. And some of the issues, the thing is that some of the states, they have reduced the population. So erstwhile they might have gotten more number of MPs in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now this will come down. So this can create disparity vis-a-vis some states, and those states which are losing, they can start questioning this against federalism and all these things. And it can, politicians, then they try to make political mileage out of it, so they can say that have more children, have 10 children, 15 children, all these things, right? So that is the thing. So way forward, weighted representation, right? Combine the population with socioeconomic indicators and development achievements, right? The next thing, promoting migration. I don't think the politicians will allow that. Already you are seeing the politicians look for some chance to create division, right? So some of the people, they call themselves secular. So to them, promoting caste based division, that some people do. Now a new type of secular individuals have come. They are promoting language based discrimination, right? Only this language people are from this state, other people should not come, right? So these people are doing very secular discrimination. So that is the thing, right? So they call themselves secular, but they are anything but that, right? So they, in the under the garb of secular discrimination, they start telling that these people are not from the state. I am only bona fide language speaker whose mother tongue is what, right? A lot of people are there. So either way, democracy is getting subverted, right? So that is some of the things that we have to take into account, right? So another important thing, right, we need to strengthen the decentralization. Now that also the politicians are not willing. The urban local bodies as well as rural local bodies, none of the state governments and the ruling parties in the states are ready to give the local bodies more power. And they're all afraid of a strong mayor, they're all afraid of a strong panchayat leader. They still want to keep those bodies begging the state government for funds. They don't give them power, they don't give them responsibility, they relegate only menial tasks to them, so that they don't wish to share the power, right? So they want to do all the stealing by themselves. So that is some of the things that are there. So as you can quote Gandhi in this, right? He promoted local self government, so you can quote that also, right? Village self rule, gram swarajya, right? You need to ensure that whatever problem can be solved at the lowest rung is solved at the lowest rung itself. That's efficient as well. At the same time, it builds the capacity of the people, right? So these are some of the points. So these type of questions can be there. What is polarization? Problems caused by polarization. All these things are there, right? So what is polarization? Sharp division of society into opposing groups. So these things happen, right? Democracy, we don't know whether democracy has been hijacked by polarization or democracy promotes polarization, right? So it's become like that, right? So both the statements, it seems to hold true, right? So when polarization is sharp, okay, the thing is that, see, the basic problem with democracy, it does not have a spine. Certain people who cause problems in the society, democracy does not have the spine to take action against them. And democracy has been hijacked by people who have a particular narrative. To them, democracy can take action against only certain perpetrators, and only if the victims are from a certain background. If the victims are from a background that they do not like, the so-called gatekeepers of democracy, they are not honest, right? If the victims are from a background that they don't like, right, then they don't highlight the thing and they don't actually start this activism and all. So what they are doing is they are promoting intolerant people to do the bid, and at the expense of truth and at the expense of the society, these people are profiteering, right? That is the biggest problem. Subversion of democracy. A democracy needs to show spine, and whoever is the problem maker, whatever be the community, they should have the spine to take action. But unfortunately, because of vote bank politics or appeasement politics, certain groups can do no wrong, right? So it has become like that, and polarization is just a consequence of that, right? So these are some of the issues, right? Polarization will ensure that there is no middle ground that can be reached, right? And because of polarization there will be constant trouble in the society. You can take the example of Manipur violence itself. It's an example of polarization. See, different groups already don't like each other, but they're not at each other's throat. But when a spark is ignited, then they are at each other's throat. So that's the biggest problem, right? So some of the things which will accentuate polarization, it is one-sided narrative setting by newspapers. That also creates polarization. It creates irritation among the people. Like, come on, man, we've already seen this. Don't need to force feed the thing, right? Give me the news. You keep the propaganda to yourself. That nobody is doing, right? That's the biggest problem. And another important thing that will fuel discontent, the economic inequality. So that is something that we have to address. And media influence, they spread propaganda, fake news, misinformation, all these things, right? So these are some of the problems. And polarization, it causes societal tensions, right? So these are some of the issues. You can just go through it, nothing much to explain. These are all self-explanatory topics, right? So to address polarization, so some of the schemes are there. Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, Dekho Apna Desh initiative, right? So many cultural exchange programs, even the Prerna program, where they are selecting 10 boys, 10 girls from every state. They will be given 1 week training in the vernacular school in Vadnagar regarding honesty, integrity, values, constitution, right? They'll be shown the motivational films. They'll be taken to visit the heritage sites. They'll be made to understand the culture of India. So all these things, they promote dialogue, education, and the biggest vehicle of polarization is films, right? If you watch vernacular films, right, you can always see the hatred that is spread against particular linguistic groups and particular communities and castes. So even I don't want to hide behind the term community. Let me put it blank, right? Against certain linguistic groups and against certain castes, you can see the hatred that is being promoted, especially in the vernacular industry, right? In the state that from where we are having this discussion, you can, if you are watching the films that is produced, you will be able to see this hate. And this hate, what it does to people, it brainwashes them, it normalizes that you can hate this particular community, this particular linguistic group for no apparent reason, right? Water is not coming in your house, that person only has done the conspiracy. This community has only done the conspiracy. These language speakers have done the conspiracy, right? These are the same people who run the government also. Who is producing the films? The person who produces the films and the person who is running the government, when both of them are the same, and their job is to spread hatred and polarization through their news channels, media channels, YouTube channels, etc., newspapers. You project the hatred in all forms that is there. Whatever is possible, you do it, right? So if you do that, democracy will be taken for a ride, and people start losing faith in democracy, and then they take matters into their own hands. So that causes problem. So another thing, you need to address inequality, right? You don't address inequality by making everybody poor. You address inequality by ensuring that all the people get access to as much facilities as possible. When I say as much facilities, I'm not saying promote hedonism. I'm saying that there should be quality access to healthcare, education, right? People need to develop civic sense. They should not throw filth in the place where they live itself. People need to have some ownership, right? They should take responsibility. I think media can go a long way in promoting basic civic sense and manners in people, not to cut down trees, plant more trees. Don't throw the waste in front of your house on the road itself, right? I'm not talking about, like, we think that illiterate people are there, we put the blame on illiterate people. That's not so. I've seen people from cars, they'll lower their window and then throw the waste, right? They go in Innova car, which is like 30 lakh rupees, and then throw the waste on the road. So much for education, right? So these are some things that we have to promote. Encouraging grassroots movement, right? So once again, what sort of grassroots movement we are encouraging, we have to think, right? We can't promote even PFI, right? Popular Front of India. That is also a grassroots movement of violent people. We can't promote violence from the grassroots, right? So little bit more specific, maybe we can promote community initiatives that will empower the sections, for example self-help groups, right? Provide access to skilling, provide access to microfinance. So we've already seen, right, the problem with microfinance, the stress and all, collateral free loans. So these are some of the things, right? And recently we are having this Yuva Utsav and all, so we will discuss that in detail. So these things we can promote for collaboration and all. The next article, it is regarding the Bihar Public Service Commission exams. So this Bihar Public Service Commission exams, you might have heard, in some of the centers there were allegations of paper leak. In some of the centers the exam started late, right? And a lot of protests happened. Already we saw the NEET question paper leak fiasco, and after such a situation, once again there is an issue in the BPSC exams, and this has caused a lot of discontentment among the students. And one center they have conducted the re-exam and all, right? And already the NEET UG, that problem is still there in the fresh in the mind of people. And you might have heard the Public Examination Prohibition of Malpractices Act, which the Parliament passed in 2024. So to prevent paper leaks, take action against those who are indulging in this malpractice, all these things, right? So this is something that the government has to address, right? So you can see the data also between 2014 and 2022, only 0.33% of the people who applied for the government jobs got the jobs. So these are some of the things, right? So administrative failures, it can result in paper leaks, irregularities, mismanagement. It can erode the public trust. It can worsen the situation in the society, right? So all these are some of the problems, and it creates disillusionment on the youth. Now they have a reason to be depressed, they have reason to be violent also. So all these are some of the issues, right? So in order to prevent these things, there needs to be administrative reforms. The state public service commissions, the national testing agency, whatever, these exam conducting bodies, they need to make their recruitment stringent. It should be a foolproof mechanism, right? It should not be an avenue or vehicle for corruption. So you might have seen a lot of exams got cancelled because of corruption and paper leaks and all these things. UGC net, that comes to mind. CSIR exam, that comes to mind. NEET exam, right? Now the BPSC exam. And different state governments also, every year there are some problems with respect to the state public service commissions, right? So these are some of the issues that have to be addressed. Okay, so challenges, right? Lack of personnel, proper trained personnel, right? Technology, right? Inconsistency, all these things are there. We need to look for ways to improve this, right? So you can just go through it. Reforms that are needed, harsher punishments, capacity building, stakeholder collaboration, right? You need to provide support systems to the students, all these things. The next thing, this article is regarding cross-border insolvency, right? So cross-border insolvency, this article was there in Hindu. It is when a debtor with assets operating in the multiple countries, and when that particular enterprise goes bust, how are we to resolve the whatever company, and then ensure that the people who have given money to that company, right, in what way are they going to be compensated if they are going to be from different countries, right? So that is the what is called as cross border insolvency. So insolvency means when a person becomes indebted, that is with all sources of income, a person is unable to pay off their debt, unable to pay off their loans or liabilities. In such a case, the person is an adjudged insolvent, right? So in that case, whatever wealth is remaining, we have to auction it off and make good the loss for the different lenders. Now, what if the companies is located in multiple countries, lenders are in multiple countries, who takes precedence before whom? All these things are what is called as cross-border insolvency. And there is one thing called as UN Citral. This is nothing but the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. So it provides a standardized legal framework for cross-border insolvency. For example, the Jet Airways case you might have heard. Some of the lenders in India, some of them in Netherlands, all these things issues were there. Okay, so this UNCITRAL model, it promotes cooperation, it respects the domestic laws, it serves as a model for resolving cross-border insolvency, right? So the objective of UNCITRAL is to ensure that there is cooperation between the courts. There's a certainty, there's a predictable and transparent framework, what type of law will apply, how, all these things, reduce the inefficiency, reduce the delay, protect the stakeholder rights. So all these things. But the issue is that India has not adopted the UNCITRAL model law. Okay. So we are having the reciprocal agreements with certain countries only, but we are not having an UNCITRAL model law, right? So that is something that we can look into, so that what if the countries with which we don't have a bilateral agreement, if they are involved in the legal problem, then it becomes a big problem, right? So that is why we need to maybe look into it and apply the UNCITRAL regulations, and this of course it will promote the investor confidence also, right? So these are some of the things. You can just go through that article, right? So solutions, we need to adopt the UNCITRAL model law, right? We need to train the dedicated professionals, especially in cross-border insolvency, right? And certain committee recommendations are there. For example, the Insolvency Law Committee, the Standing Committees of 2021-24, the Cross-Border Insolvency Rules Regulation Committee 2020, they all have given some suggestions. Those things can be implemented, right? So these are some of the topics. The next thing, it is regarding the pollution in Delhi, right? So you would have heard of the perennial problem in Delhi with respect to the poor air quality, especially in the winters. So you might have heard that the air quality, it was above 400, which is like very, very polluted, right? So these are some of the problems which Delhi is facing. Even Beijing was at such a situation, and now they've made a lot of changes so that Beijing, now the air quality has improved. So same thing, we need to implement it in Delhi, and one of the suggestions that the author is giving to bring down the pollution rapidly is to ensure that only electric vehicles are used in Delhi. Okay, and another thing that the author is mentioning, it is regarding the crop burning issue. The crop burning or stubble burning in Punjab, Haryana, so that has reduced. So we need to ensure that this becomes a zero. Okay, so these are some of the things that the author has discussed, right? So shifting to electric vehicles, the author believes, and of course it's true, right? It will reduce the particulate matter pollution, whether it is PM 2.5 or PM 10, whatever it may be, right? So electric vehicles, so you are having different schemes which is providing subsidies and cash incentives so that the people buy the electric vehicles. PM e-drive scheme is there, right? e-Amrit portal is there to know about the electric vehicles and all. So these things in current affairs can be asked, right? So electric vehicles, they are powered by electric motors. They store the electricity in batteries. You have to charge them, right? Battery electric vehicles run fully in the battery, right? Plug-in hybrid vehicles, so they have a small battery pack, and maybe like 50-kilometer range, 60-kilometer range. Apart from that, it runs on the petrol. So for a long distance you can run using the petrol, and if you are driving within the city with less speed, then it will run entirely on electric. So you will get very good fuel efficiency, like per liter 25 kilometers, 26 kilometers. You might have heard these are all plug-in hybrids, right? So that is possible. Another thing is called as the hybrid electric vehicles. So hybrid electric vehicle means you can't charge the battery by plugging it into the socket. Here the battery will be charged only through regenerative braking. So this has been implemented. So in India it's not that much famous. Only now the vehicles are coming. Okay, fuel cell electric vehicles, fuel cell EVs especially, they use the hydrogen fuel cell only, right? So hydrogen fuel cell, we've already seen the working, right? So in hydrogen fuel cell, the hydrogen is supplied, right? So once the hydrogen is supplied, the hydrogen gets split, right? You have platinum catalysts and all, the hydrogen gets split and the electrons flow through the external circuit, whereas the protons, they go through the electrolyte, and eventually at the other end both of them recombine. So when the electrons flow through the external circuit, electricity is harvested, and eventually when they recombine at the other electrode, it will result in only water vapor and some amount of heat as byproducts. So these are some of the advantages. It's fully non-polluting. It neither pollutes nor does it emit greenhouse gases, right? We don't consider water vapor as a greenhouse gas. It is a greenhouse gas, but it's good, right, for the environment. Only then it causes rain. So we don't consider it as a bad gas, right? So this fuel cell electric vehicles, the only drawback is that we need to create a hydrogen supply chain. Just like your petrol bunks and all, we need to have a supply chain for hydrogen. Now that has not yet been developed. And another problem with respect to hydrogen is the storage, right? It's quite heavy. There's a chance for leakage, explosions can happen. All these are some of the issues. But the advantage is that, charging a battery in an electric vehicle, it takes an hour or hour and a half if you want to charge, up to 70% or 60%, right? Whereas in a hydrogen vehicle, you can just refuel it in a few minutes, just like how you do with petrol. So that is the advantage there. Right, so advantages of EVs: zero tailpipe emissions, lowering the carbon footprint, combating climate change, lowering operation cost. Even the thing, right, the per kilometer cost is very less. You compare it, more the distance you travel. Imagine you are traveling 50 kilometers per every day. So more money you will spend on petrol. A liter of petrol is 102, 103 rupees. Whereas the same thing, it will cost you only 10 rupees in a EV. Right, so these are some of the advantages, right? Once again, the disadvantage with electric vehicles, suppose you run out of battery, right? That range, that is what they call range anxiety. What if you run out of battery, or what if there are not enough charging stations? There will be a lot of crowd there. 2 hours, 3 hours you have to stop. And another thing with respect to recycling, how are we going to recycle? We can see what plastic did to us, right? Even on YouTube, you can see the videos 40 years ago, 60 years ago. How beautiful they look, right? How clean they look. The water bodies are not polluted. The soil is not polluted, right? No environmental pollution in terms of plastic. And the same places, right? Same places. Now you see, you don't have to see it in YouTube. You walk around, right? Everywhere surrounding us, we live in trash, right? Every street corner, trash, right? And somehow a person goes out of station for 1 month, the house is locked, put trash in front of it. 50 years ago, it was so clean. Go see the videos on YouTube, it makes you cry, right? So now tomorrow we buy all the EVs and all, right? We dress up well, we put makeup and all, we dress up well, we talk in English, but we throw waste on the street, right? So same thing, you will throw the EV battery on the street. Now added pollution, right? All these are some of the things. How are you going to recycle it, right? So advantages of EVs, I think I don't have to explain this more. A lot of things you would have known already: instant torque, quiet operation, all these things. So some of the challenges: high initial cost, right, because of the battery pack, charging infrastructure, battery mining impact, lack of recycling. All these are some of the issues. Schemes: PM e-drive, that is the latest for the e2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, buses, charging infrastructure, trucks, ambulances. you're buying all this, you're getting subsidy. Fame 2 scheme, once again, it is also there. e-Amrit portal for the getting the awareness regarding the EVs. PLI scheme, that is also there, right? So manufacturing of the high quality battery cells, to promote that, PLI is there. If you make a sales, right, above a particular threshold, so you can get the tax rebates, some cash incentives and all, that will reduce your cost and it will increase your profitability, right? So these are some of the things, right? The next topic, it is with respect to the e-Shram portal. So e-Shram portal, you would have heard, it's under Ministry of Labor and Employment, right? More than 300 million, in fact it's nearly 40 crores unorganized sector workers have joined the e-Shram portal. Okay, and this e-Shram portal is helping the government to identify the weaker sections, the laborers, whoever is between 16 to 59 years. They can register onto the portal, they can get the social security benefits from the government. National Career Service portal is integrated into the e-Shram portal, so you get the notifications for, you can apply for jobs, right? The National Infrastructure Pipeline, the Gati Shakti scheme, has been integrated with the portal. And if you are joining the e-Shram portal, already you can get access to Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Suraksha Bima Yojana, all these things you can, in one place you can apply. So that, what the government is doing is, they are taking the data from the e-Shram portal. Okay, this person is there in the e-Shram portal, that means that he is a weaker section. Let us just check the, his eligibility for other schemes, like maybe Jan Arogya Yojana or Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana or Atal Pension Scheme or Narega, all these things. If the person is eligible, then ensure that benefit, automatically he gets enrolled under these schemes also, so that the benefit reaches to him. So this is something with respect to the e-Shram portal, right? So especially after the COVID pandemic only, we have created this, after seeing how the unorganized sector, they are suffering, right? The COVID pandemic, when the unorganized sector workers, they walked back 3,000 kilometers, cycled back 3,000 kilometers, many of them died, and it was said to be the greatest loss of life after the partition. Nobody knows exactly how many people died, but it caused a lot of problems, right? So the e-Shram portal is supposed to help the government to ensure that social security, other initiatives of the government all reaches the vulnerable peoples, right? So questions like this can be there in your mains, you can just go through it. Unorganized sector, we've discussed this already. Unorganized sector where there is no social security, right? You don't have paid leave, you don't have job security, you don't have health insurance, you don't have life insurance, right? It's a daily wage labor only, right? You don't show up, then you don't get paid, right? For example, gig workers, platform workers, migrant workers, construction laborers, the people, hawkers, street vendors, right? All these people come under unorganized sector. So any person who is not covered by the EPF, any person who is not covered by ESIC, any person who is not covered by NPS, they all can join the e-Shram portal, provided they are between 16 to 59 years. Okay, they have to give their Aadhaar, and along with that you will get e-Shram ID also. So there will be a unique ID that will remain with you for life, and with that ID you can get the benefits under the scheme. So these are some of the occupations which are classified as unorganized. You can just go through it. What are the problems in unorganized sector? You yourself can guess. I don't have to explain all these things. Lack of job security, low wages, absence of social security, poor working conditions, no legal protection, exploitation, all these things, right? So e-Shram portal, in fact, it has reached 40 crores. At December 15, 2023, if we take the 2024 data, 38 crores. Probably by the time we are discussing, it would have reached 40 crores. What are the benefits? Automatically, they are giving the Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Suraksha Bima Yojana, Atal Pension Yojana, all these things they are joining, right? Of course, you have to pay the premium yearly. They will join you, right? After that, you have to pay it. Nobody will pay on your behalf, right? But you get the awareness of all these schemes, right? So you can think of e-Shram portal in this way. I join in this portal, I become aware of a lot of other schemes that are there for me, given by the government, right? I might see the news and I see the propaganda, then I develop hatred towards the government. Now, at least through the e-Shram portal, you can understand that the government is doing something, and you can take the benefit of it, and maybe you can remember that when you go to the ballot, right? So, eligibility for e-Shram portal, we've already discussed all these things. You can just go through it. What are the challenges? Once again, you need to have basic understanding of joining the portal, some digital literacy. You need to learn and to read and write using the mobile phone, internet connection. So you can go to the e-service centers or e-seva centers. Common service centers are there. Common service centers, e-seva centers, however they call it. So there they'll help you, onboard you and then teach you some basics so that you can start using the thing, right? So these are some of the things. You can just go through it. e-Shram portal, more than half of them are women who have registered here. That's a good thing. So other initiatives for unorganized sector. So Suraksha Bima Yojana we've discussed. Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, life insurance we've discussed. Right, National Social Assistance Program like a widow pension, old age pension, family benefit, all these things. Atal Pension Yojana, once again we've discussed, and even certain specific pension yojanas are there. Pradhan Mantri Laghu Vyapar Mandan, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Mandan, all these things are there. That also you can just go through it, right? So Vyapar Mandan is for the small traders. The Kisan Mandan is for the agricultural laborers, right? So you can just go through it, right? Sorry, Kisan Mandan is for the land owning farmers. So agricultural laborers don't come under Kisan Mandan. They can apply for the Atal Pension Yojana. The landed farmers, whoever is small farmer, marginal farmer, they can join the Kisan Mandan, right? Sorry, I made a mistake. The next thing it is with respect to, once again, defense purchases. The Prime Minister has visited France, right? And further we are going to purchase the Rafale aircrafts for the Indian Navy, and we are also going to buy 3 additional Scorpion class submarines, right? Conventional submarine means diesel electric submarine, right? So these will cost us nearly $10 billion, right? So this highlights the fact that we are once again very slow in developing the deck based fighter capability, right? There's a delay in the deck based fighter capability. So if we can develop the deck based fighter, we don't have to buy all these costly military wear from abroad. The problem is that there's a delay in the deck based fighter, and even for the advanced conventional submarines, the project 75I, there's a huge delay. So 75I, now they are saying that the discussions for it started in 1990s. They're saying that 75I, the 6 submarines will join service only in 2035. So these are some of the problems, right? We don't still have indigenous manufacturing of all these defense wares. Okay, so just go through it. And another important thing, right, it's relations with certain countries, especially after Trump has come into power. India's relationship with US, it has started off with a bang, right? So Donald Trump has rightfully deported the illegal Indian migrants who tried to enter into US. You might have heard of the donkey route, DUNKI, where the migrants, what they do is they travel to some South American country. They first go to some European country like Netherlands and all. From Netherlands, they go to Colombia or Brazil or these places. And there, from Brazil, they try to go to Guatemala or Nicaragua, those places. Then from there they travel into Mexico, and then they try to reach the US border, and somewhere in Arizona or somewhere in those places, New Mexico, through those places they try to enter into the US. And Donald Trump is fed up with the illegals, right? So once again, even in US, you can see the subversion of democracy. Certain politicians, they are encouraging this illegal migrants so that they will be the vote bank for them. See, that's a very, how obnoxious is that? Imagine, right, in order to be in power and in order to make money for myself alone, I put the entire nation at risk. I allow all the people, whether they come illegally, legally, whether they are qualified or not, how it is going to affect the country, I don't care. I promote the illegals. I allow them to come in so that they'll vote for me, so that I can keep on winning, right? How disgusting is that? So if this is what democracy can provide us, right, where politicians will encourage the death of our society, our culture, our peoples, our country, so that they can remain in power, then I don't think there'll be a lot of people who are happy with democracy, right? So unless we address this, uh, all this hoopla hype about democracy, inclusivity, all these things, humbug, can be, it's not good for the country itself, right? You can't have a political system where we force feed ourselves poison in the name of inclusivity and all these things, right? So with respect to the US, economic engagement is bilateral trade, you can see 118 billion, so it's a positive for us, 32 billion surplus, mainly focusing on the service sector, IT exports and all, right? And we are there in the various multi-country forums like Quad. We have different military agreements, whether it is SISMOVA, COMCASA, BECA, industrial securities are next, like that. So many agreements we are having for military to military cooperation, right? And even India is seen as a favorable trading partner with respect to military hardware, right? So any non-ally country, we are having the highest, it's considered like if any military hardware is requested by India for sale, it's by default it is to be sold, unless on that case to by case basis they'll refuse it. It's like that. It's not like it will be no and then on a case by case basis they'll approve. It's actually they'll approve on a case by case basis, they can say no. So that's a good thing. So that much the relationship has improved with China. Recently, once again, we have restarted the bilateral relations, especially after the Doklam crisis, Galwan crisis, the Chinese incursions, right? Still a lot of areas still under the Chinese incursion. Much beyond the LAC they have come, and some of the areas are still under their control. But however, talks are going on with them, but it is not that status quo has been brought back. The original status quo is not still there. We cannot patrol certain areas which we used to patrol. Even the herders, nomadic herders, they still cannot go for pasture on areas that they used to do. So bilateral trade, you can see 135 billion. See the trade deficit, 101 billion. Good thing we banned TikTok, right? So some of the other things also, we need to learn from China. You need to respect them, right? How they safeguard their culture, right? They don't, they are immune to Western propaganda, right? So I think that sort of optimization is needed, and how China, nurtured their domestic tech companies. They didn't allow the Western multinationals to have a free hand. They didn't allow them to get the China's market. So China, ensured that there is a domestic alternative for every technology that is available. And the latest one is the DeepSeek. You would have seen in the news like how trillions of dollars got wiped out. The American AI companies, they lost so much money. Why? Because DeepSeek is able to provide 80 to 90% of their efficiency at 10% of the cost. Imagine I have ChatGPT latest version. The cost of research and development for it, the power, computing power, the electricity, the water, the energy that is needed to run it. Okay, it's very costly. China's DeepSeek can do as good as it. Like for example, not as good, even if it is 80 to 90% as good, but at 10% of the cost, right? At 10% of the electricity consumption, at 10% of the energy consumption. Imagine how of a breakthrough it is. This despite the sanctions on China, preventing them from accessing the latest graphic processing chips, latest semiconductor chips, right? All these 3 nanometer technology, 4 nanometer technology, without having access to latest foundry technologies for making the semiconductor chips. You might have heard how Nvidia is producing the graphic cards and all with that much computing power. Without access to all of those, still China is able to develop this DeepSeek technology with their own technology, indigenous manufacturing, fabrication, design, development, all these things. So that's something that we should learn from them, right? So much credit to China in that regard. They protect their national interest. With Russia, I guess the relations are good. We are purchasing more of the Russian oil, and we are exporting that to Europe. So we are making some profit also, right? The government also put these taxes, right, a windfall tax, and made a lot of money, right? So we are buying some Russian equipment. So Triumph S-400, all these things we are buying. So you might be aware of that. So many helicopters. So for the first time, the value of defense imports, I think from Russia went below 50%, right? According to the SIPRI, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute report. For the first time, 50% of our defense imports. Usually, it will be more than 50% of our defense imports in terms of value will be from Russia, but now it has gone down below 50%, right? So that's something that is there. And engagement with Russia is also good. We are providing, Russia an alternative, right? They are like overtly becoming reliant on China, and China is becoming the senior partner. So in such a situation, mm, China can tighten the noose around Russia's neck. So having India as a partner, it gives some leeway to Russia, right? So these are some of the things. With respect to other areas, Maldives. So Maldives, once again, right, there was a lot of public acrimony, how the Maldivian government, they insulted Indians and all, and a lot of Indian tourists cancelled their bookings. So now they have like kind of toned down. But with respect to Maldives, it's always like that. Chinese influence is maximum. Probably, China owns more than 35%, more than one third of the national debt of Maldives. So that's the situation. Same thing with Sri Lanka. China was having that much, leverage over Sri Lanka, especially after the fleeing of the Rajapakse family. That leverage has reduced a bit, but still, once again, China has its hand deep in Sri Lanka, in Maldives, even in Bangladesh, right? One of the reasons they're saying that US is behind the uncertainty in Bangladesh, that is true. So, but anyway, China is also having their hands deep in Bangladesh. They also cover a lot of influence there, and Chinese influence in Nepal. We did this Madesi blockade and all, and unnecessarily shot ourselves in the foot. Now, China, because of that, they took advantage of that Madesi agitation. How we, we intervened, telling that Nepal's constitution is not inclusive enough. Like, imagine, no, like how is it our concern, man? Like we just blatantly intervened into their affairs, right? And that resulted in Nepal going well inside the embrace of China, and now they have influence there, right? So we lost whatever thing that we had also. So now only we are learning, from very bad foreign policy decisions. We are trying to improve. With West Asia, so we are trying to balance the thing with Israel, Saudi, and Iran. I guess that is going on good. Chabahar port, we are having access. Our Sitwe port of Myanmar, we are having access. So these are things which we are having access, and even commercial access. We are having Hambantota port. So these things we are having, right? So Indo-Pacific strategy, right? India is part of this Indo-Pacific framework, where we are trying to promote a rule-based, free and fair Indo-Pacific. So countering China's assertiveness. So you would have heard of this nine-dashed line, Chinese claim of the entire South China Sea, right? China asserting, colliding with the Philippines fishing vessels, Vietnamese fishing vessels, threatening Taiwan, right? All these things China is doing there. So those islands and all, please note Scarborough Shoal, then Ryukyu Islands, Senkaku Islands, right? Then these type of islands and all, every now and then will be there in the news. There's no under whose control it is, which sea it is located, all these things, just be aware of it, right? Paracel Spratly Islands, all these things. So defense modernization, so make in India for defense is there. We are trying to improve the defense. Of course, our defense manufacture as well as exports has increased manifold compared to previous years. So that is a positive thing. And open general export license, OGEL, right? Any Indian company wants to export the defense products, they can do so only to the Wassenaar agreement countries, provided they have a OGEL. That is 2 years once they have to renew their license that they get from the Ministry of Defense. Only that they can export. So know about this OGEL and all, they can ask in current affairs. Okay. So economic reforms, make in India, digital India, promoting the manufacturing, all these things, right? And now with Trump back at the helm in US, a lot of flight has been seen in the foreign institutional investors, right? They are escaping from the Indian share markets. They're not seeing like India as profitable as before. That is one of the things, right? And the rupee is going on depreciating against the dollar. It's now 86, 87. So these are some of the things that we have to address, right? Another article, the next one, it is regarding this science, technology, engineering, management. So in these sectors, there are more women coming into these sectors. So the data is given here, and one of the things is that under the RTI, it revealed that once the 20% of supernumerary quota for women has been implemented in the undergraduate engineering programs in the IITs, this has resulted in more of the female students coming to the IITs, right? So nearly 2120 female students are studying in the IITs in the UG courses in 2024. That's an all-time high, right? So these are some of the things that has been highlighted. Okay, thing is that once you are increasing the number of women, you need to increase the infrastructure facilities also for the women, like hostels, toilets, all these things. And you also have to improve the safety situation also. You might have heard recently this sexual assault took place, one in that RG Car hospital in Kolkata, another in Anna University in Chennai. All these sexual assault taking place within the university itself. So campuses must be made more safer, right? So these are some of the things which has been mentioned in the article. So you can just go through it, right? So this 20% seats reserved, it is promoting the more of women to enter into STEM, right? So the examples, whatever we see, they've just given here, you can just go through it, right? So it makes the STEM education accessible to both men and women, right? So if you see here with respect to women in engineering, 11.3 lakh out of 27.6 lakh of engineering students, it's women. So maybe they want to increase this further, right? So these are some of the things from education to workforce, right? So similar things, they should do it. If you see the medicine sector, a lot of women are represented there. Nursing, it is predominantly dominated by women. So they're saying that even in the other things like STEM, in these sectors also you need to ensure that there is some equity, right? Enough of women should be represented. Okay, so we can just go through it, right? So the next thing, challenges in STEM, all these things we've already seen it, right? So come to this government initiatives to promote STEM, right? National Education Policy 2020, it's promoting multidisciplinary education. So it's giving people an idea of different streams, all these things. Atal Innovation Mission, promoting the science education in the schools. It is piquing the children's interest in science. So Atal Tinkering Labs, Atal Incubation Centers, where idea can be incubated into a company. All these things, it will help. Even scholarship programs are there, right? This Inspire scholarship you would have heard, right? To promote the STEM in the rural schools, Rashtriya Avishkar Abhiyan is there, right? Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, all these things also, they are promoting the awareness of science, creating the interest in women. And also a lot of scholarship schemes are there specifically targeted at women, right? So that women children, they'll be the girl children, they can get the scholarships. If they are from a poor background, they can get the scholarship and then they can study, right? So all these things are there. How do you sustain the progress? You make the campus more inclusive, tie up with the public private partnership that should be there. Maybe the government can't fund everything on their own, so you need to go for public private partnership, having a strong alumni network. So if you see in the American institutes like Cambridge or Oxford, like if it is UK or US, whatever it may be, right? Stanford, whatever it is, they have a very strong alumni network. They give back billions of dollars, and these billions of dollars, they go into providing better infrastructure, research facilities, attracting the latest top faculties, all these things. So building a strong alumni network that will ensure that better placements happen and all. At the same time, if they can contribute back to the school or college that has taught them, so once again the infrastructure will be developed, and sometimes the government can't provide for everyone, right? So ideally they should, but once again, considering the practical thing, the government is also not having enough funds to ensure for everybody good quality education, though we are striving towards it, right? So the alumni funds can come in handy in such a situation, right? So those are the things with respect to STEM. So the next article regarding the collegium, right? So we would have heard of this collegium and all, right? So how the judges, they decide who to recruit, and the process of recruitment, once again there is accusation that it is not transparent enough, it's opaque, right? It is hollow. And now regarding the collegium, the Supreme Court has come up with certain reforms, right? They're saying that the candidates who they are going to select henceforth, they are keeping in mind that if they are having close relatives who are retired judges or serving judges, maybe those candidates they will look upon less favorably, right? So that there will be a balance in judiciary, making it more representative in that manner, right? So this article discusses how the Supreme Court judges are selected, how the High Court judges are selected. So all these things, how the collegium system works, everything is we've already seen clearly there in Lakshmikant book, right? You might have heard of the first judge case, second judge case, third judge case, the NJAC judgment of 2015, right? So as of now, it is the judges themselves who recruit and decide how the judges are to be recruited. Okay, and what is the constitutional provision on how a Supreme Court judge is recruited, how a state High Court judge is recruited, right? So all these things are there in the Lakshmikant book thoroughly, so I don't want to be redundant and explain it once again. So you can just go through these things, right? Collegium system, what it is, mechanism for appointments and transfers in the higher judiciary, consists of Supreme Court Chief Justice and the 4 senior most judges, right, of the Supreme Court. And historical evolution, first judge case, primacy of the executive in the judicial appointment. Second judge case, what is the outcome? Established the collegium system, prioritizing judiciary in the appointment. Third judge case, it clarified the composition of the collegium and its functioning. Okay, so this comes under the domain of judicial independence. And even the fourth judge case, or the striking down of the NJAC, the Supreme Court said that I think except Justice Chelameshwar, who was in favor of NJAC, they said that executive intervening in judiciary, even in any capacity, maybe even in advisory capacity, they don't like it. Okay, they're saying that it can bring the judiciary under the influence of the executive. It will against the separation of powers, against independence of judiciary. So that's what the thing that they have said. And the allegations regarding collegium system, opaqueness, lack of accountability, transparency, nobody knows what is the exact procedure, right? So a lot of calls for reforms are there, so you can just go through it. Okay, so this is the NJAC. What they said was Chief Justice will be the chairpersons, 2 senior most judges of Supreme Court, law minister, and 2 eminent persons nominated by the PM, Chief Justice, and the leader of opposition. So this is what they said. But once again, the court felt that this is too much of executive influence, so they struck it down, right? So that is the thing. So you can see the constitutional context with respect to the appointment of judges. Article 124 for appointment of Supreme Court judges, Article 217 for appointment of High Court judges, right? An executive role, the president appoints the judges based on the collegium recommendations. And you might have heard of this in the news, right? The collegium is recommending a person, and the cabinet, right, headed by the prime minister, they sit on the file. Sometimes they send it back, and then again the collegium sends it back, and they should accept it the second time. But once again, the government sits on the file, so there is a lot of delay also in the appointments. So these are some of the things. And recent changes, the Supreme Court has decided to create interviews to assess the candidate's suitability. and they want to take the steps to prevent the existing judges' family, immediate family, from once again they also becoming judges. So let's see how it pans out. So as of now, this you can take it as how the Supreme Court is trying to reform itself, so that justice is not only done but also seen to be done in the eyes of public, right? So that the trust that the courts have earned over the years, that remains, right? So that they can better reflect the composition of benches to better reflect the demography of the country. So this is the thing, right? You are wanting to reflect the demography of the country in the composition of judges. Now you are promoting illegal immigration, you are promoting certain specific communities, then there will be demographic shift, and that is definitely going to cause discontent. You cannot call it democracy and promote all these things and then shove it down on certain communities, indirectly help certain communities. You should not do it and then call yourself secular. So that's the biggest thing, right? So the next topic, it is with respect to the UDAISE data. So you would have heard of this UDAISE Plus, Unified District Information System for Education Plus. So it's having the data of all the schools, number of students studying in the schools, number of teachers, the infrastructure details, how many students in which class, what is the gross enrollment ratio in high school, primary school, middle school, all these data. So UDAISE Plus, it is the biggest database that is there, right? It is updated every year. So this is the latest database that we have regarding the education sector in the country, right? The number of students, teachers, all these things, right? And the latest data, they are saying that there is a dip in the enrollment. Okay, so the thing is that in the previous UDAISE Plus report, the enrollment was 26 crore, but now it has reduced to 24.8 crore. Okay, so like more than 1 crore reduction is there in the enrollment. Now what is the reason? That is what they are worried about. Okay, and the authorities are saying that this enrollment, actually it is not reflective of people dropping out, but because of the way in which the data collection has been refined, right? So data collection methods have been improved, so you cannot per se compare the previous year's report with the current year's report. That is what the authorities are saying. Some of the places the schools have been merged, so once again that will show some anomalies, or it will show like as if there is a reduction in the number of people who are enrolling. So these things are what the authorities are saying. So you need to know what is UDAISE Plus, right? There's an online data collection system for Indian schools. So student enrollment, teacher details, infrastructure, outcomes, how many people passed, failed, what is the grade, everything is updated, right? So this will ensure that the government is aware of what is the status of education, so that we can spend more as a percentage of GDP on education. So developed countries and all, they are spending nearly 8%, 10% on education, whereas we are spending very less, maybe 3% on education. So we need to improve it. So UDAISE Plus data, that will give us an understanding on how to make appropriately or optimized manner we need to invest in education, whether it is primary, secondary, middle school, higher education, postgraduate, R&D, PhD, labs, all these things we need to invest, right? So the role of UDAISE Plus, it's a management information system regarding the education sector. So it will help us in understanding the situation in the Indian schools, where to give the money, right? Whether the outcomes that we are expecting, whether it is actually happening or not. So if it is not happening, we need to do the course correction. So different schemes are there. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan is there, Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan is there. So many schemes are there. If despite these schemes improvement is not happening, then we need to ensure that there is some problem. We need to identify that problem, they take the corrective measures. So evidence-based decision making, right? So UDAISE Plus helps in that, right? So latest findings you can see here, enrollment has declined by 1.22 crore. Okay, and the decrease in schools covered by UDAISE Plus, so that is one of the reasons why, because some schools closed down, right? So states with significant closures, Jammu Kashmir, Assam, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, right? So we need to know whether these schools closed down because of a lack of demand, or for some other reason because of lack of funds or something, that we have to find out. Okay, and if the schools are closed, what happens is the children are put in the nearest school, right? So in that case, what happens is they have to now travel a bit farther, right? So that also is there, right? So reasons for decline, right? They are saying that the data collection method has been made more stringent, more reliable. So previously there was potential for overestimation. Now they are saying that they have addressed that. Some of the schools have been closed and the students have been merged into the other nearby schools, so that is there, right? So when school is going to close, as I said, the distance that the student has to travel to school, that will increase, right? So another factor, falling birth rates, migration, lack of access in remote areas. So still that's an issue. Some people, they are not going to school. That is something that we have to address, right? And if the dropout is happening because of a lack of money, maybe the COVID impact, right? The parents lost their jobs, they don't have enough money to put them in the school, so then that's something that we have to address. So government initiatives, right, to promote the enrollment, education and all, Samagra Shiksha, Right to Education Act, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. So Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao now comes under Mission Shakti, right? So these are some of the things. Kasturbai Gandhi residential schools, that is there. Ekalavya model residential schools for scheduled tribe students, Navodaya Vidyalaya schools, right? So Sainik schools, all these things we are promoting for the weaker sections. And for the scheduled castes, Shrestha scheme is there. Quality residential education, 3,000 students, 1,500 in 9th standard, 1,500 in 11th standard, they are giving them the residential education free of cost. The Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is giving, whether it is the top quality residential school, whether CBSE or state board, they can join. The expenditure will be covered by the ministry, right? Per year, more than 1.2 to 1.3 lakhs they are covering the expense per student. So these are some of the things. And even hostel schemes are there, Chhatravas Yojanas are there for OBCs, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, seed scheme for the DNT, all these things are there. Okay, so scholarships also, right? Scholarships, Protsahan Yojana is there, scholarships are there, and even the loans for higher education. Recently, there's the Vidya Lakshmi scheme, right? Collateral free loan they are providing. So just go through all these things. So next thing, it is with respect to the UGC's draft regulations of 2025 regarding the selection of the vice chancellor. And the point that the author wants to say is how the vice chancellor, what qualifications that person should have. If it is very strict, by those standards, the court has said that even Albert Einstein cannot be a vice chancellor. So they are pointing out that it should not be that much strict. There should be flexibility. And the author has given examples where in Oxford University, they appointed a businessman, right, who was a businessman and not an academic, Mr. John Hood, and how the university performed very well under him. And likewise, there have been successful appointments of non-academics. Even IFS officers and all have been appointed as vice chancellors, and they've done a very good job. So these things have to be taken into account, and that not only it should not be like only a career academician can become a vice chancellor. So there should be some flexibility, is what the author is saying, right? So you can just go through it. He has given the example of G. Parthasarathi, who was a IFS officer. He was a successful vice chancellor of JNU, right? So even former vice president Hamid Ansari, so he was a successful vice chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University. So these are some of the things, the examples the author has given, right? Transformative changes in India's higher education system, right? So the UGC guidelines, that is the aim, the objective, the end result, that is what they want to have. Okay, so what are the reforms suggested by the UGC in this draft guidelines? They are promoting this Western concept like spring admission, fall admission, like that. Higher educational institutions can admit students twice a year, so that it aligns with international standards. That is the best practices practiced abroad, right, across the globe in top universities. Multiple entry exit provisions. Say I am, for example, joining a 4-year course. Okay, maybe due to some reason after 2 semesters I am dropping out, then I can there are up to 8 years they are allowing me the time to rejoin. Maybe I can join after 2 years, I can continue from where I let off, not only in the same college and in the same course, even in any UGC accredited institute, even in a different college, I can start from the 3rd semester onwards. Not only in the same course. Say for example, I joined BSc Botany, and now I want to rejoin 2 years later in another state. I want to join BSc Biotech. Maybe some of the courses will apply to biotech also. Those things I don't have to rewrite. Only the things that I have to mandatorily undergo, maybe for biotech purpose, those few exams alone I can write, papers alone I can write. Okay, So multiple entry exit options. Maybe I joined a 4-year undergraduate course. Maybe I am leaving after 1 year, I'll get a certificate. I'm leaving after say 3 years, I can get a diploma. And finally after the 4th year, I can get a degree, right? So these are some of the things, right? Another important thing, they want to make the PG program applications discipline agnostic. I think this is something that is very good, promoting interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary learning, especially in some of the states, right? If you do not join engineering and if you do not join medicine, right, you bring great shame to the family, right? If you're a boy, you need to join engineering, right? If you're a woman, then you have to show your mettle in MBBS, right? So, and of course, people now are aware that there are not enough medicine seats, so they say that whether boy or woman, you need to go engineering. Yes, it's like you brought great sin to your ancestors. So what happens is the children, without thinking, they are put into engineering, and only after they finish engineering they realize like, what is life, what have I done, what course I am doing, why did I join this, what am I interested in. At that time only they explore, right? So previously people used to force people till 12th, and then after 12th at least they used to think and then take the UG. But in certain states you think only after the UG, and by that time you are 22 23, now you think, okay, what should I do. So in such a situation it will help those people, right? They can join a PG program of their choice, right? Imagine I have done engineering, I want to take something that is totally unrelated to engineering. Now I can't take that PG course because, right, I have no experience in UG for that. Maybe I can take that PG course, few extra courses I have to do, I learn it, then it will help me, right? Else I have to do the UG again, right? So flexibility, discipline agnostic admissions, that will help, right? And they're promoting hybrid education, maybe in person as well as online. Okay, and you might have heard of this academic bank of credit and all. So know about it, what is that academic bank of credit, those things. Okay, so these are some of the reforms suggested by UGC. So these are the advantages, you can just go through it, it's the same thing. Challenges, you risk diluting the standards, so that is something that we have to be aware. Okay, another important thing, the institutions and faculty, they might not understand the concept well, so they might resist the reforms or they won't implement it in the right manner. So hand holding and training for them, awareness should be created. So that is something that we have to keep in mind, right? So next article, it is once again with respect to the situation of our macroeconomics of the country. So 2024-25, the growth is expected to moderate, right? So we are still growing, but at a less of an acceleration. So we have decelerated, to be precise, to 6.4% from 8.2%. And one of the main reasons is inflation, consumption slowdown, global uncertainties, right? So global uncertainty, so a lot of uncertainties are there, right? Because of our banking system, we are not having that bank stress that has moderated, as we saw in the previous article. But with respect to the institutional investment, global investors, there's a lot of meltdown is happening, right? So going forward, it is going to be more uncertain like this only. That is what the experts are, getting the economies to get themselves prepared for. However, private consumption, okay, it is increasing, right? So private consumption contributing to 55% of the GDP, so that plays a key role. Okay, and the main thing behind the private consumption, rural consumption has rebounded. Okay, a better monsoon can help rural consumption, right? So we had a decent monsoon, so that has helped. Okay, so these are some of the things, and if you see the static part of it, right, understanding what is capital expenditure, right, what is the investment rate, all these things becomes crucial. And you might have heard of this, there's a book, right, Macroeconomics by Shankar Ganesh, right? So once you finish your basic economics NCERTs 9, 10, 11 and 12, try to read this Macroeconomics by Shankar Ganesh. That book is actually quite good. Okay, it will help you understand the different terminologies, right, concepts for example, like what is GDP, what is GNP, what are the components of budget, what is fiscal deficit, what is revenue deficit, what is capital expenditure, what is purchasing power parity, what is inflation, disinflation, stagflation, what is Lorentz curve, Phillips curve, all these things in a summary format, definition, the implication, the impact, how this thing impacts the other, that will be given in a summarized in a simple language in 2 lines. Advantage, disadvantage, the formula, it will be given in that manner. It will help you with respect to your UPSC preparation. So you can use that book, Macroeconomics by Shankar Ganesh. Try to have a look at that book. It will be good. So capital expenditure is the fund that is spent on acquiring, upgrading, or maintaining the physical assets. So it has a huge significance. It promotes long-term investment. So only if you have good capital asset, if you have the proper infrastructure, only then the investors will come to invest. Imagine I'm creating a SEZ and there's no road, there's no electricity, then why will anybody want to come and invest there? So having the proper infrastructure is very important. That is why recently the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, they are having a scheme where they are creating industrial smart cities, right, where the next generation industries like semiconductor chip manufacturing or biotech industries, healthcare industry, right, green energy industries, they alone will be setting up their factories there. Okay, and this particular city itself will be green, sustainable. They have got the LEED platinum rating, right? So even in the Griha rating, in the National Green Building Council, under the CII, they have given them a platinum rating, right? So these are some of the things, and government is allocating 11.11 trillion, right, 3.4% of GDP as capital expenditure. So Gati Shakti mission is there, right, where for infrastructure creation like highways, bridges, railways, and a lot of these investments we are doing it in PPP model also, right, because you need to involve the private sector also, because the government alone cannot, in a country as big as India, the government alone cannot efficiently provide all the services, infrastructure and all. So it's essential that the government involves the private sector as well. So long-term investment, it stimulates the economy, promotes the investment, creates the business confidence, right? So these are some of the things, you can just go through it. Importance of capex to a nation, so we've discussed that. Better economic growth, better public services, sustainability, competitiveness, job creation, right? What are the initiatives to boost domestic consumption? Latest one, right, the abolition of income tax up to 12 lakh per annum, right? So citizens who are earning up to 12 lakh per annum, they don't have to pay any income tax, right? So that is the biggest advantage, the boost that they have given to the people. So have that excess money, buy something, right, so that the consumption will increase, so that the sales will increase, so that the GDP will increase, so that employment will increase, so that people will take more loans, right? It will stimulate the consumption and GDP, right? So PM Kisan, we are giving money 6,000 rupees to the landholding farmers so that they can use that money to purchase something. Narega is there, we are guaranteeing 100 days of employment per family to a rural area so that they can use that money for buying something, right? Gram Sadak Yojana, Gati Shakti initiative, Awas Yojana, Jal Jeevan mission, right? All these things, creation of infrastructure, Sagar Mala, Bharat Mala, right? A lot of schemes we are having, right, to promote the consumption, creation of infrastructure and all. To promote access to credit, Mudra Yojana is there, right? Stand Up India, Startup India, formalization of micro food processing enterprises scheme, Kisan Sampada Yojana, Matsya Sampada Yojana, right? All these things to make it access to improve the credit, self-help group bank linkage program. So all these things are there. The investment in the healthcare, so that also slowly it is improving, but it is nowhere near where it is needed. At least 5% of GDP should be there in healthcare, right? Education also slowly it is increasing, right? So income tax reforms we've discussed. GST also they are working on simplifying it. So I think that is where we need to hit the nail. So we are still trying to optimize GST, but too many slabs are there, right? 5 slabs and all for different level of taxation for different commodities. 5 slabs. Nowhere else in the world that many are there, right? It's very few countries have that much of complexity. Now that will increase the compliance, all these problems. So we need to reduce the slabs, maybe 3 slabs, that will be good, 6, 12, 18%. So probably, right, that is something to ponder. So the next article regarding the river interlinking. So you might have heard this Ken Betwa river interlinking. So it's one of the projects, right? So national perspective plan is there for the interlinking of rivers. So under that, the first river that we are trying to interlink it is the Ken Betwa river, right? So 2/3 of the core area of Panna Tiger Reserve is getting flooded. So that is something that we have to take into consideration. So a lot of tigers are there in Panna. So that is the thing. So benefits of river interlinking, right? So you're taking the water from a surplus area and sending it to the deficit area. It will promote the irrigation, right? It will promote access to drinking water. It will promote the economic activities in those areas. All these things promote the agricultural productivity, help in creation of electricity, hydropower through the dams, right? Flood and drought mitigation, all these things are some of the benefits, but challenges, right? River linking is something that it's some people say that river linking is a good way to promote corruption and steal people's money and cause damage to the environment, and there's truth to that, right? Desalination plants, right? We have a huge coastline. You can put the desalination plants, produce lot of water, send that water through pipelines to the deficit areas. That would probably be a better thing than interlinking the rivers. It will cost you a huge amount of money. It will disrupt the ecosystem. Instead of that, we can make use of the huge coastline, make use of the ocean water. So much is there. We have lot of solar power. Create the solar powered desalination plants. How difficult is it? Already with global warming, even now in Chennai it is 40 degrees. So make use of it. Probably, I think even the government, right? We don't know. Maybe they are also working to take the money, steal the money, or they don't really want things to get developed. We don't know, man, right? So social costs, you can see the displacement of people, economic feasibility, right? You build big dams, and 20 years, 30 years it gets silted up, then it becomes waste, right? So and latest hydroelectric power plants, you would have seen some of the plants in the Sikkim, Arunachal and all, they get washed away. Sorry, not Arunachal, in Sikkim and Uttarakhand, they got washed away, right? They just spent millions of dollars creating the power plant. It got washed away. Same thing now, we are planning some hydroelectric power plants in Arunachal. So these are all some of the big problems, and you might have heard of this Aral Sea disappearing. So these are some of the issues with respect to river interlinking. So sustainable alternatives, that is the thing, right? Decentralized solution. Why don't we create solar powered desalination plants across the coast? For one district, you can create one plant across the coast and just transfer it through pipes. Everybody will, your needs will be met, right? Create more man-made tanks, desilt them, ensure that you save the water, ensure that you are creating tertiary treatment reverse osmosis plants in the in the cities as well as in the towns. Ensure that whatever water is sent out of the homes, industries and all is properly treated, converted into, if not drinking water, at least into the water that can be fit for discharge into the rivers and lakes. That will revive the water table, that will make it sustainable. Go for afforestation. Lot of wasteland is there where there is nothing that is growing. Irrigate them artificially through desalination, grow the plants in them, maybe grow fruit trees, create the fruits, give it to the people, at least people's vitamins, minerals, all they'll consume. Maybe convert it into an enterprise, do the value addition from the fruit, make the jam, sell the jam, you can make a lot of money, government will make income also, people will get jobs, the nutrition security will improve. All these things we can think of, right? So these are not very difficult things, right? Some of the institutions, take ISRO, they are capable of sending the satellites to space. They're doing this, that, landing on Mars, all these things. At the same time, basic technology that has been there 100 years ago itself, that we are not implementing. So there are two extremes simultaneously living in India. That is the biggest problem. learn from Israel's water management. Not only water management, Israel's extremism management also we have to learn, right? So policy and awareness, conservation measures, groundwater regulation, all these are some of the things, right? The integrated water resource management or watershed development that we have to do, right? So major river linking projects, I told you, right? The National Perspective Plan on River Linking, it has two components, Himalayan and Peninsular. Coordinating agency is the Water Development Agency, NWDA. So Ken Betwa River Link, that is the successful example. Godavari Krishna link, that also they are doing, right? Par Tapi Narmada link they are doing. Daman Ganga Pinjal, that they are trying, right, in Maharashtra. Mahanadi Godavari, that also they are trying, but once again, so these are all at different stages of planning, right? So Ken Betwa only has gone ahead actually. So these are some of the points, you can go through it. The next article is regarding the Taliban, right? A lot of countries now they have started, even openly, and they are starting to have the dialogue with Taliban. Okay, India, we are doing the back channel level dialogue, right? But recently, you might have heard in the news that the Pakistani forces and the Afghani forces, they are clashing at the border, and shootouts and all are happening, and people have lost their lives, soldiers on both sides, right? So India condemned this act of Pakistan, calling it affront to the Afghan sovereignty, right? So some people are reading more to it, thinking that okay, maybe time is now ripe for us to just start the dialogue openly also with the Taliban, right? And one of the things with respect to the Afghan Pakistan relations is the particular Durand line, right? The colonial era border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, it split the Pashtun people. So a lot of Pashtuns, they live on the side of Pakistan, and a lot of them, of course, they live in Afghanistan. So Taliban does not recognize the Durand line, and it's a porous border. And Pakistan, what they're doing is they have sent back all the refugees from Afghanistan, and they're trying to fence the border, and this is causing some problems, right? And Pakistan is saying that Tehreek Taliban Pakistan, it's a terrorist organization, and we are fighting against the terrorists. Whereas the Taliban is saying that no, you are actually attacking Pashtuns. So that is what they are saying. And the author also is quoting the example of how erstwhile terrorists who fought the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria, and the regime of Bashar al-Assad fell, and Assad escaped to Russia. And now the Western countries, right, they are now recognizing this as a legitimate government of Syria, and they are trying to cut deals with those terrorists. Now the problem is that now these people, once they stop listening to the Americans, and if they don't do deals with the Americans, then the Americans will call them as terrorists, and they start fighting against them also. There's a chance. That was how ISIS, Taliban and all was developed, right? It's the Americans who train the terrorists on one hand to fight against some other person, and when that person comes to power, US wants them to give back something in return. When that doesn't happen, US labels them as terrorists. So that's how it's been happening for a long time. So the article says that, right, India, probably maybe the time is ripe for us to have the dialogue with Afghanistan, right? So that is what the author is saying. So basically, basic overview of Afghanistan. It's a landlocked country, the borders and all, Kabul is the capital. So India-Afghan relationship, right? We have the Strategic Partnership Agreement of 2011 for security, trade and development. We have invested a huge amount of money in Afghanistan. Even we've constructed a lot of highways. Even the Afghan parliament, the Salma Dam, right? Highways we have constructed, hospitals we have constructed, even educational institutions we have constructed. We have supplied lot of wheat, right? So food security programs, food aid programs we've helped, right? So regional connectivity through the Chabahar port, we can reach Afghanistan and then onward to Central Asia, avoiding Pakistan. So that's something that is there. So that is why even Iran, we balance the relationship vis-a-vis Israel and Saudi on one side, Iran on the other side, so like that, right? Security cooperation. So previously we had it. We used to train the Afghan forces here in our IMA, NDA, and all. But now after the Taliban takeover, this has stopped, right? And cultural diplomacy, that I think is a ridiculous proposition. Whoever minorities, whether Hindus or Sikhs and all, they have all been killed, raped, forcibly converted, or driven away. So you would have heard how the Taliban, they killed the Hindus, they killed the Sikhs, the Gurudwara attacks, temple attacks, all these things repeatedly happened. And that is why one of the constituents of CAA, the persecuted minorities of Afghanistan, they are included in the CAA, even if they have entered into India illegally, provided they have stayed for a particular amount of time, right? So we will give them citizenship, right? So cultural diplomacy, there's not much any culture left. Maybe if we also adopt Wahhabism, maybe we can have the cultural diplomacy with Afghanistan. So security challenges, training, equipping Afghan forces, intelligence sharing, regional stability, preventing misuse of Afghan territory, high level meetings. Now the thing is that we can't prevent misuse of our own territory, right? Manipur or these kooky militants, Kashmir, the cross border militants, we can't prevent misuse of our own territory. And we can only hope and pray that the terrorists in Afghanistan don't start attacking us, but that's about it, right? So Chabahar port, so the port is now operational. Maybe there are some plans for the Chabahar railway, where until the border with Afghanistan, from the Chabahar port in Iran, we'll have a railway line to take the goods, and from there the highway to Kabul has been built, but the railway line, once again, threat of sanctions, so we've not yet built any railway line there. So that is some of the issues. So this will help even in the international north-south transit corridor, right? It will help in that as well, right? So India, Pakistan, Afghanistan triangle. So Duran line issue. So border between Pakistan, Afghanistan, artificially created border, right? India's leverage in Afghanistan, right? Once upon a time, we built all these construction projects, but once again, it's quite limited. Proposed solutions, they are saying that strengthen the regional cooperation through SCO or SARC, provide the refugee rehabilitation, for that some assistance, maybe food assistance. Of course, with respect to the Afghan cricket team, right, we provide them the facilities to train here in India. So Afghans, they play their games in India also, so that thing we have done. Okay, so human rights advocacy, right, help in peace building, all these things, right? So the next article, it is with respect to the accessibility. So accessibility, we are talking from the people with disability point of view. So accessibility rules. So recently you would have heard that the Supreme Court in one particular case, they held that Rule 15 of the Right of People with Disabilities Act 2017, it violates the act itself. Okay, telling that the act is mandatorily imposing some obligations on the government for safeguarding the rights of the disabled. The different ministries and all in their schemes, maybe for example you are having Ministry of Housing, Urban Affairs, and maybe they are retrofitting the cities, maybe smart cities mission. So under the retrofitting, they want to make that retrofitting accessible to the disabled. So mandatorily it should be done. Now recent government rules, they make it, they don't make it mandatory. They are saying that, it's voluntary, or it's up to the local bodies to decide. So that thing, the court has ruled that that is a step backward. Okay, we need to make it mandatory. It should be made mandatory, that it should be a hard and fast rule that whatever scheme we are implementing, it should be inclusive, and it should not be left to the discretion of the departments, ministries, and to the local bodies, failing which once again they might not do it, right? So that is the thing, that is what the article is discussing here. And internationally, you would have heard of the UN Convention on Rights of People with Disabilities, so which India is a signatory, right? So to best implement this UN convention, only the Right of People with Disabilities Act itself we have framed. So now we cannot backtrack from our obligation, right? So we moved forward a bit, now we can't backtrack. In fact, on the contrary, we need to ensure that there is a proper social audit of the various schemes whether they are compliant of the People with Disability Act and the rules that have been framed under the act, right? So even latest schemes, even Kelo India is promoting the sports among the disabled people, and the Paralympic performance, it's a lot better than the actual Olympics itself. So in such a situation, we need to ensure that we double down on it and help the people who are having the disability, not as a right, not as a charity but as a right, so that they can it's a basic human right, so that every person can actualize their entire potential, reach their potential, and also for that we need to provide them certain guarantees. For that only these legal guarantees through the act and all is there. So that is what the court has emphasized. So rest of the things, I think you can just go through it. It's self-explanatory, right? So broader implications of the judgment, it will ensure that accessibility and inclusivity for people with disabilities will still be mandatory for the different government departments, right? International practices, you can take the example of Canada, right? Comprehensive framework to achieve full accessibility by 2040. So they want to ensure that whatever the government services provided, it will be disable accessed. But once again, we have to see whether Canada will be able to do that, provided the crisis that they are facing because of shoddy immigration policies, where they have allowed a lot of people who have absolutely no skill but are a threat, demographic threat to the Canadian society. So such people have been allowed inside, and it's causing a lot of misery, spreading of drugs, rapes, all these things to the people who are already there in Canada, whether they're citizens or legal migrants, right? So a lot of illegal migrant problem is there, right? So let's see whether Canada can be able to reach this roadmap. But anyway, going forward, we need to ensure that the rules are simple, at the same time are effective, so that universal access for the various government services is available for the people with disabilities, right? So basic background, what are the provisions that are available for PWDs in India? You can go through it. 4% reservation for PWDs is there. Accessible India campaign, so in order to ensure that these people also access the government services. National policy for PWDs, so that civil society and all will be involved to create future policies which will be inclusive, taking into account the different types of disabilities, right? So that is the thing. Now the next article, right? Forging leadership with India's youth power. So this article talks about the National Youth Festival, right? See, this National Youth Festival, it will be held for around 5 days, right? So this National Youth Festival is currently being organized by My Bharat, right? Mera Yuva Bharat, which is an autonomous body under the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. So you must remember this. Under which ministry? It is an autonomous body under Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. So it is only providing the guidance and direction for the National Youth Festival. Okay, and this National Youth Festival, it will act as a stepping stone, promoting the partnership of the youth in nation building, helping the knowledge sharing amongst them, right? Providing them the opportunity for accessing resources, mentorship opportunities to cultivate their skill, talent, and all, and at the same time help in India's development. Okay, so the youth will have to play a key role if we want to achieve that developed India vision, right? Vikshit Bharat vision. So this article talks about that. This National Youth Festival, what it will include, it will have workshops and panels on leadership, innovation. It will have digital entrepreneurship sessions, sustainable living sessions, right? So all that, it will give a lot of awareness as well as understanding to the youth. Maybe they have an entrepreneurship idea, it will link them up with the right people so that they can make it happen, right? There will be a lot of cultural programs where they can understand about different culture like dance, theater, all these things from different parts of the country. So it will promote the cultural exchange, unity in diversity, all these things, right? So this is what the article is saying. So National Youth Festival, it's celebrated on Swami Vivekananda's birthday, January 12, right? So what is the theme for 2025? Youth for Sustainable Development, youth's role in achieving the SDG. Organizer is the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports via the My Bharat platform, right, which is an autonomous organization under the said ministry. So engage the youth to solve India's problems. stages, you'll be having quiz, essay, blog writing competitions, right? Innovative state level, like for example, like your Shark Tank, you can pitch your vision. Ideas also can be pitched to the policy makers, even directly to the prime minister and all. Okay, so just go through it. What is this My Bharat? So once again, we've discussed that. You can just go through it. It's all self-explanatory, right? National Youth Festival, how is it beneficial? Youth awareness, youth empowerment, national integration, helping the youth realize their potential, right? All these things are there. You can just go through it. So all these things we've seen it already, right? The next thing, recent news, it was there wherein the L&T chairman as well as this Infosys founder, both of them told that everybody should work 70 hours a week, right? In fact, the L&T chairman, they asked them to put 90 hours a week. So if you divide 90, right? Infosys chairman, he wanted 70 hours a week, which is like what, 7 days a week. Divide by 7, so 10 hours. So Monday to Sunday, 10 hours you will be in office, right? Or if you want to work only 5 days a week, 2 days holiday, then you divide 5 by 70. So if you put 5 by 70, you have to be there in the office for 14 hours. Okay, so that is what the Infosys chairman, he wants you to work 14 hours a day so that he can become, if he is a billionaire now, he can become a trillionaire, right? And L&T chairman, he wants you to work 90 hours, right? So if you have 2 days of holidays and if you put 90 by 5, how much does it come? 18 hours, right? 18 hours a day you will be there in the office, right? And 6 hours, maybe if you want you can sleep, else you can work for L&T so that they can bag all the contracts and be shoddy in its implementation, right? So anyway, so these are all our visionary industrialists. So apart from them also, these startup founders, Ola, right? Bombay Shaving Company CEO, he also has advocated a harsher work regimen, right? So we want to design the best shaving razor. Like if you see itself, automatically it will shave you. So that type of razor he wants to make. So for that you have to put in, harsher work regime. Try to find out the best shaving cream, so that if you put it, not only the hair, I think even the brain also will get shaved off. So that type of thing they want. So if you compare it with the other countries, take North America for example, they work 37.9 hours per week in North America and 37 hours in Europe. If you see in Asia, we are already working 49 hours. So if you put in 49 by 5, right, 5 8s are 40, 5 9s are 45, nearly 5 10s are 50. So 10 hours we are working, already. That's not enough, right? So if you are going to work more, then of course you can earn 10 rupees, but they'll earn at least 1 lakh rupees at your expense. Anyway, so these are some of the things, right? So Article 19, right, what does it say? Right to practice any profession. Directive principles emphasizes just and humane work conditions. I think, right, it's humane enough. You work 18 hours a day, 6 hours you get to sleep, right? It's still humane enough. You are still alive. What are the labor laws? Factories Act of 1948 is there. Minimum Wages Act 1948. Of course, labor laws have been simplified, right, into 4 labor codes: code on social security, code on minimum wages, code on resolving the industrial disputes, right? Code on social security, code on operational safety. So 4 labor codes are there that you have to remember. These are all old acts. What you have to remember is the 4 labor codes into which all of these acts have been subsumed. So what are those 4 labor codes? Code on social security, that is the first one. Code on minimum wages, that is the second one. Code on operational health and safety, that is the third one. Code on industrial disputes, that is the fourth one. So these 4, if you know, it is enough. And apart from that, to prevent the sexual harassment, you have the POSH Act, right? Prevention of harassment at workplace. So POSH Act is there, so remember that. So global framework, India is a signatory to the ILO convention that promotes fair work culture and worker rights, rights of workers, equal treatment, safety, fair wages, leave, work-life balance, grievance redressal, all these things have been given. Impact of extended working hours. So first thing you'll be weak, you will die soon, right? Burnout, diminished efficiency, strained relationship. Of course, what more important than making money for your employer, right? Let relationship go to hell. So dissatisfaction, frustration, decreased morale, absenteeism, turnover, right? So it will have a negative impact on turnover, right? Now, of course, disproportionate impact on women, limited time for training and upskilling, increased risk of accidents, increased attrition costs, all these things. So way ahead is you need to implement the 4 labor codes which we already have, and try to improve the working conditions according to the ILO norms, so that there's a proper balance, right? A person who is the employer, he also needs to get some benefit. The person who is the worker, they also need to get some benefit. There should be give and take on both sides. So this should be ensured. That's the responsibility of the government. The civil society organizations, they also have a responsibility for it, and thankfully all these dastardly statements, they got very rightfully called out in social media. So now these people cannot get away uttering all these things. It will definitely have a backlash, right? So I guess last 5 minutes is there, maybe we can finish off this article also. I guess until 160 we can finish, and the next thing, I guess after maybe tomorrow 11 a.m. we can start. So the remaining articles. So with respect to the health sector, right? So recently you would have heard of this lot of increase in the zoonotic diseases and all is happening. So to against the zoonotic diseases, WHO has called for collaboration amongst the private sector, public sector, all the countries, civil society organizations and all. So you are having the WHO One Health program, you are having the WHO program on antimicrobial resistance, you are having the Muscat Ministerial on AMR. All of these things, they want to work to ensure that the antimicrobial resistance will come down. They are working to ensure that whatever life that we are living, it will have as less impact on the biodiversity as possible. We will respect the environment, we will respect the other life forms, we will not pollute the environment, we will not exploit the environment, failing which we are going to have a huge impact. There will be a toll on our health, right? Because everything is interconnected. Animal health, human health, environmental health, all three of them are interconnected. You are going to add the antibiotics artificially, unnecessarily, to the poultry, to the fisheries and all, so that they'll grow faster. It will have an impact. It will create antimicrobial resistance, and then what will happen? Whatever antimicrobial we are having, if we are sick, if we consume it, that time the medicine will lose its effectiveness, right? So all these things are the problems. So in this article, the author has mentioned how healthcare as a sector in India, how it needs to cope with the future challenges. He's saying that there's not enough investment from the public side, so the government has to invest more. And he has given the examples of the Ayushman Bharat scheme, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission scheme, right? Recently in the budget, the government has also announced certain schemes for cancer care and all. How they are creating the cancer care centers in every district of the country, so that was there in the news. The government is also having the integrated disease surveillance program under the NHM, right? So these things are some of the things that the author has mentioned, right? So we need to ensure that the healthcare, right, which is dependent on the environment. So if environment is lost, health will definitely be lost, right? So we need to take care of the environment, as well as we have a responsibility for our own individual health, right? So that is the thing. So I guess with that we can end the discussion, right? So the next slide is once again another topic, so that we will see it in the next class. Okay, the material will be shared with you. The remaining slides we can take a look in the next class at 11 a.m. tomorrow, right? So if you have any queries, if you have any doubts, please reach out to us, okay? And you can go through our daily news analysis videos also, as well as daily editorial analysis videos also. It will be around 20 minutes each, so around 40 minutes. On the days you are not able to read the newspaper yourself, you can go through those videos, and if you go through those videos, you will also get an intuition, you will get an understanding of what to look for in the newspaper, whether you are able to identify the topics which are important, because from our side we identify the topics from the UPSC perspective. So you can compare how you are able to identify with our list of topics, so that maybe if there is more of a match, then you can have that confidence that yes, I'm able to identify which topic is important correctly. So that gives you confidence and it will help you make better notes, right? So that's about it, right? If there are any queries, do reach out to us, we'll get back to you, right? Thank you for your time. So tomorrow same time we can meet and we'll finish off the remaining articles, right? Thank you.